The economy is still a very big story. The Fed just finished a two-day meeting, came out saying Americans are keeping their wallets closed and employers are reluctant to hire, but it indicated it's willing to provide extra help to stimulate the economy. Meantime, President Obama is speaking to European Union officials about possible plans to help Italy, Spain, and France. Proof we live in a global economy. Joe Krier is here, president of Krier Wealth Management, to talk about what's going on.
Hey, Bruce.
All right, so they ended that two-day meeting. Ben Bernanke stopped short of doing anything, but said, let's look at the jobs data, and then we might move ahead. Is this one of those situations where we have to read between the lines?
I think so, and it gets down to tweaking the statement. It's almost the same thing he said a couple months ago, but now he said we're likely to help versus just hinting that there might be more help on the table there.
We talked about the Consumer Confidence Index being up, albeit slightly, this past month. Do you think consumers are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, or is it pent-up demand?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, I think, and a lot of what the Fed is doing these days is just trying to spike consumer confidence, because it's pretty clear that some of the stuff they've done in the past has been questionable as to whether it's really helped or not. So, if you're going to hint towards helping, you're going to help everyone from your next door neighbor to Walmart perhaps make that buying decision that could help stimulate the economy.
So many people sit back and they say, well, I heard the Fed is thinking about doing this, the Fed took this action. And the real question is, what does it mean for us? And they do have, I guess, three important tools at their disposal they can employ here.
Yeah, the biggest one is keeping interest rates low. And they did say that yesterday, that they want to keep them low out to 2014. And then, of course, encouraging banks to lend. That can get the housing market started. And most economic recoveries start with housing. So, that's a pretty big deal. And, there's a lot of other things they can do, like refinance the debt that they've got. And they're basically getting rid of short-term bonds and buying long-term bonds. So they're locking in the debt at the longer-term rates right now, while rates are at historic lows.
And let's bring Europe into the equation. We know that Spain is teetering on the brink of failure. Italy's got its problems. France has its problems. I've got to imagine, with his political future at stake, the U.S. economy at stake, the president's spending a lot of time talking to those world leaders.
Yeah, certainly. And that gets down to both confidence and just economic indicators like our exports to Europe and things like that.
There's not a lot of cooperation between countries these days.
No, it's pretty rough. If you look at at the European situation, they haven't been working together. They have massive debts. Their economy is down. It sounds a little bit like the U.S. So the intertwining of these two things is more so than it's ever been. And as you alluded to, it would help Obama's chances quite a bit if Europe settled down. The U.S. will do well. In fact, about an hour from now, the central bank of Europe is going to make its own statement, and we'll see what that does to the U.S. markets today.
Are you surprised that we've not seen more European actual collapse, given what's going on over there?
Yeah, it's been pretty tricky, and the European Union was a kind of a giant economic experiment, if you will, and the problem was they all had the same currency, but they were all operating under their own set of rules. And a crisis like this has to get to a tipping point before they all start working together, and it's thought that today might be the first big step to these countries actually working together and getting something done.
But the question becomes, is it too much, too little, too late? And is it as simple as goes Europe, so too goes the U.S.?
To a certain extent. Some say that their fate is just our fate 5 or 10 years in the future. I think we're a little bit stronger than that. And, Europe is working through some pretty big problems, but it's going to boil down to fiscal responsibility. You got to cut the budget, you got to balance the budget in order to make things work. And that's a message that sits very well right at home.
And there's some things that are out of our control, like the economy is cyclical.
Certainly.
Joe Krier, always appreciate your insights.